Hey guys, it's BlastLad back with another devlog, captain's log type video. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the level design process used for m0ther, which was our Game Jam game for the UT Game Jam 2020. It was a blast to make, and we ended up winning runner-up for Best Design, as well as a Judge's Choice Awards by Jose Guerra. And they really like the level design and they really like the gameplay mechanics that we use. So I'm going to kind of go into it was complemented for both the design and the gameplay mechanics. So I'm going to kind of go into the process of how I went about creating it. For the project, I was kind of the lead programmer and the primary level designer for the gameplay mechanics and the level. So let's go into how I kind of went about it. So first off, the concept for the theme for the game jam was something's missing, and what we used with that theme is created the concept of basically a reverse Metroidvania. Whereas in a normal Metroidvania, you start out basically with only a very few abilities, you gain more abilities as you go through, and then you can now access new paths, do new special moves, things like that. So in a reverse Metroidvania, basically the concept is that you start out with everything, and when you get reset at the end of the level here, you're only really exploring one level, but you're losing abilities, and as a result, you're losing the ability to take certain paths. So that's really it in the simplest terms. In a normal Metroidvania, you're gaining new abilities and exploring new areas. In this, you're losing abilities, but becoming increasingly familiar with one area. So the character has the ability to shoot, jump, and double jump, and use an energy barrier at the start of the game. Shooting, double jumping, energy barrier that absorbs projectiles. You can change the color to absorb different ones, and it also kind of slows your descent. And then, of course, you can shoot enemies. And then in later runs, you'll run through the game a total of 5 times. 4 times through this primary level here, and 1 time through a black screen that's kind of just meant to be an ending. And you're losing abilities each time. So how do you design a level with this idea of mine? Well, first, you map it out on a whiteboard. That's what I did first. I know that's very hard to see, but the point is that this was actually very useful to the overall design of the level. What this did, and the primary purpose of this, was to create scale, decide the size of the rooms, the general layout of the map, and then the paths that the player would take. Think of this as a mini-map that just is accessible to the developers. Each room in this kind of map is 2 by 2 inches on this board, and then from that you're allowed to kind of modularly attach them to create bigger rooms or longer rooms, vertically, horizontally, whatever you really want. And that's exactly what's done here, is that this is a 2 by 2 rooms, or 4 singular rooms connected together to create one big one, whereas this is 2 rooms connected to kind of create a longer hallway. And each room here, after doing some testing with how we wanted the camera to look, the size of the player, we decided each room would be 24 by 17 blocks or grids on a tile map. And then we kind of went from there. So, going back over to our character, lovely. That's exactly how we went about it, is since it also kind of showed the paths that the player would take, the shortest possible path. An example, the first run, the shortest and fastest possible path is by going up and into the boss room from the up area. But that also means is that as you lose access to that area, nothing needs to change with that. It's kind of a one and done type scenario where you don't need to worry about how the player will interact with the area when they lose abilities. For example, this jump here, this jump is really only a double jump only jump, and there's no other way to progress through this room. But being as without a double jump, you also cannot get up to this area here, but you can go down here. You don't need to worry about that, because the player will never really be able to get to this area right here. or and progress through there. And in the off chance that they do end up coming through here from there, they just need to go around like a normal Metroidvania. And that's kind of how it really realistically went. It was a very long like process where I basically I sculpted out the rooms kind of like I said before with the 24x17 block as a base, and I went up through here and down into here. And the whole other area of the map was on paper, but it was not in engine, because what I was doing is I was creating the first path where you have access to a double jump, because you lose access to the double jump on the second run through. So when paths would intersect, being as this room is usable during both the first run and second run, it's all about creating, all right, well, what can the player do while they have the double jump? They can immediately jump up here, they can jump up to here, and they can jump over there. What happens when they don't have the double jump? Well, now they have to go around, and they'll have to take the bottom path, because they can no longer get up to here. And that's how you really go about doing it, is if the room has overlapping paths, and you know that it will be used more than once, you need to think about how all the abilities would interact. But being as this room is inaccessible after you lose the double jump, you only really need to develop it with the double jump in mind. And then we would scope out the levels here, add in mechanics such as energy beams, moving platforms, and other things, and you would go from there. And it was really a top-down iterative process, where we started with the first path, and then after the first path was done, it was the second path now. Alright, well, the beginning is the same, where you start here and you jump up to here, you go through this room, but since you can no longer get up to the top path, you now go through the bottom path using only the 4 abilities. And being as this area was the second path really only, we would then move through here and once again kind of apply to the same principles. And this, once again, as paths would intersect, you would need to think about how the abilities would interact. So I'm going to kind of show off this section here. So you go through this room the 3rd time and the 4th time. You have to. You can go through it the other times, but it's much slower, so generally you want to take a faster path. But when you have on the 3rd run, you lose access to the double jump, but you can still shoot. So it's super simple. You don't even need to think about it. You shoot the button to open the door, and then you can just kind of go through the wall, nice and easy. But what happens on the 4th run when you lose the ability to shoot? Well, now it's an actual challenge, because if you can't shoot, you can't actually shoot the button. So you need to get the enemy, like I did there, to shoot the button. Once again, it's not as easy as just, it's something you actually have to think about now. And that's kind of how the level was created. That kind of comes again to play here, whereas this is a room with a bunch of moving platforms and electrified floor with enemies. So usually you'd just be able to shoot the enemies, and it would be nice and easy. But if you lose the ability to shoot the enemies, you now need to be a little bit smarter with how you jump and go through these energy barriers using your abilities. It's all about kind of needing to become more clever with how you approach a situation as time goes on. And the other great thing about this is that because it's only one level that is reused multiple times in clever ways, that allows this to gain a lot more gameplay content for a game jam game. And that's one of the things we were praised on, was a very ambitious project for a weekend. And there was a lot of gameplay for one weekend. It honestly takes about maybe 10-15 minutes to play through the game. And that's a very noble goal for a game jam game. And the whole entire reason for that is because we created a large interconnected level that was reused for 4 different run-throughs. So the actual level wasn't really completed until maybe 6 hours before the game was due. But being as we already knew the process in which the player would lose their abilities and how that would interact with the environment, it was just a matter of controlling when those abilities were lost. And like I said, the level wasn't actually complete until 6 hours before the game was due. But the game was already 90% complete at that point because it was just a matter of disabling the player's abilities. They can go through if during the first, you can take the same path on the bottom here every single run. But like I said before, in a Metroidvania, sure, you can do that too. You can take the longest path every single time, but no one does that because it's a waste of time. So you're gonna want to take these shorter paths first, and then until you have to take the bottom path. And that's kind of the process we took. If I just had to summarize it in a few minutes, because we're getting kind of long here, it was an iterative top-down reverse Metroidvania where you started creating the easiest paths and then eventually kind of created the longest paths. Whereas in a usual game, Metroidvania like this, you kind of develop the base path first and just add in little shortcut paths as you gain abilities. So that's really all I have here. I hope that was a little insightful as to how we went about developing m0ther. And if you get a chance, please play it in the description below. I will leave a link to the download. Thank you, and have a great day.